I want to show you guys this. So this is that's an M, Montana Tech. The V inside the M on road games, I would call the what's the name of that building? The maintenance building, where tell them, yeah, the physical facility. And we didn't have cell phones, so we'd have to stop somewhere, and I'd call this guy named Jim Edgar and Bruce Saylor, and I'd have the book. We didn't have stat sheets like this. We had a book, and I would call out the box scores, you know, and I'd kind of give him a rundown on the game. If I didn't call, then, you know, nothing would be reported, because this was in 1980, 81. And then this, after I called the Montana Standard, that was a newspaper, then I'd call the physical facility and said, please, please, please make sure that that V is flashing. Because when you won, they would flash the V. And what's the name of that pass coming from Helena? What's the name of that road? Woodville Hill. And what's the one coming from Billings? Homestay. And so V was what, 6,600, 6,700 feet above sea level? Yep. So my first year there, it snowed in every month. Every single month. I said, where the hell am I? I mean, where does it snow? I thought maybe I was in Russia or something. But this Joe, who played, I recruited him out of Butte Central High School, had this guy paint this for me. And these are the houses that was on the street when I turned up Park or Excelsior. Excelsior. But this was in 1980. Around the turn of the century in 1900, Butte was the largest city in the state. Because when the immigrants would come through Ellis Island, they'd find out where the jobs were in the mining industry. They'd go to Butte, and there was copper mines and ore, which is why the nickname's the Ore Diggers. I'm up here talking about Montana Tech more than I'm talking about my team. But after we played tonight, I'd much rather talk about Montana Tech. Joe and Therese were students. They were freshmen at Montana Tech when I was 24 years old. Of course, the seniors on that team were about the same age as I was. One of them's got his own oil and gas company in San Antonio. So a lot of fond memories from old Butte, Montana.
Go ahead, Joseph, in the middle. Kelvin, first, congratulations on it. When you're out there at the end and you're watching the video and seeing all the former players, what's going through your mind? It's the kind of the journey to get to this.
Yeah, just gratitude. You know, you don't. I've always felt a little guilty. I don't know if guilty is the right word. Probably not guilty, but you know, when they single you out, like. You know, if you win 800 games, three things. You got to be pretty good. You've got to have withstood a lot of potholes and adversity. Then you got to have had a great staff and players. You know, when I'm long gone and somebody looks after those records, I'd wish somebody would take a slash. What do you call that? The line, and then put something else. Is just put all the teams that I was lucky enough to have coached that won those games that are given to me. You know, I didn't win those games. Those players and staffs won those games, and you know. But it's a long journey. This is my fifth decade in coaching basketball. 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010s, 20. So 5 decades. Learned a lot. But no matter what happened across those journeys, I'm grateful for all of it, the good and the bad. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for all the players that allowed me to coach them the way I coach. They've hung in there with me. Karen and I started dating at 16 years old, and we've been married for 46 years. You think about what she's been through. How would you like to be married to me? She's the one that probably deserves more. I probably get a few of them, but she probably deserves more because I didn't have anybody to talk to. Our families were both in North Carolina when we were in Montana, so we didn't have family. Kelly and Lauren didn't grow up with aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff, and we didn't have enough money to go home for holidays, so we just learned to lean on each other, and we're still doing it.
Kelvin, congratulations. That video that Lauren put together, getting all those guys, and were you surprised to see everyone and Magic too? And what's going through your mind when you're seeing that?
Yeah, Magic was, of course, when I was working with him, his name was I just called him EJ, Irvin Johnson, and a lot of guys call him Irvin, EJ. Back then, 78, 79 was my first year at Michigan State, and Irvin and Coach Heathcote and the varsity would be downstairs practicing the old Jennison Field house, and we started practice before they did. I was assistant coach for the JV team too, as part of my grad assistantship. So I'd be upstairs practicing with the JV team, and I couldn't wait to go downstairs with the varsity, because I got to see Irvin practice. I got to see everything he did. We do this thing called daily dozen, 6 shots to the right, 6 shots to the left. He went an entire season, never missed a shot. That's amazing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. He never missed a shot. He just mastered that. But just about every big win we've had, Irvin always texts. And so seeing him tonight wasn't a surprise. Just the kind of guy he is. I talked to Tom Izzo today. I talked to Rick Barnes today. When I first started doing this, I asked Rick today, I said, what was your first job? He said, George Mason. And so he's probably on his 5th school. But, old guys, they persevere. You got to persevere in this business, especially today, with everything that's going on with it. But just a lot of gratitude, very grateful for Karen and the battle she's fought, and Kellen and Lauren, moving around the countryside, all these different states we've lived in, and I'm grateful that we found a great home here.
If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll go over here to far right to Randy, please. Randy right there. Randy.
Kelvin, congratulations.
Thank you, Randy.
As for the game tonight, you mentioned on the floor, you mentioned it here, plenty of things to work on, typical game one. What did you like, and what area that you most did not like coming out of this first game?
If you had asked me how I thought we'd play tonight, after having scouted Lehigh, I don't think anything surprised me. The guy that played the 4 for us last year was a guy by the name, I don't know if you guys heard of him, his name was J1 Roberts. He's the winningest player in the history of this program. Guess who replaced him tonight? Sinat. He's never played a college game before. How did you think that he was going to play? I wonder how many people compare him to J1. How unplugged is that? To compare him to J1. About L.J. Cryer, Emanuel wasn't the first option last year. It was L.J. and J1. Everybody's moving up a chair. So it's going to take everybody, not just the freshmen, it's these guys. Milos, and they're having to do a lot now with those rookies. But you can tell it was JoJo's first game ever because he was a freshman. Right? Oh, he played before? He played like it was his first game. I thought of all the freshmen, the worst one was JoJo. Then I reminded myself, wait a minute, he's a junior. But I don't overreact to none of this stuff. That's for you guys. I don't overreact. It's like being 4-3 last year. you guys, the guys that's been around me a lot have heard me say this a million times. I could care less about wins and losses in November. That's why I didn't overreact to being 4-3. We've been 13-0. We've been 16-0. We've been 15-0. I don't overreact to that either. You know, you learn to don't overreact or have highs and lows when you're a coach, because all you have to do is watch everybody else go batshit crazy sometimes. It's kind of amusing. But we should get back in the gym. Our kids, here's what our kids need to do. And I remember telling Emanuel this was a freshman. They need to keep showing up and come in with the right attitude and with the right effort level and be humble. This is a very humbling game. It's a very humbling game. I don't know that if I've ever, of course, I've never played freshman much, but we're replacing a team with a historical team that had some of the best players in the history of the school. And but that's the comparison these guys will have, and it's not fair at all. And they'll be good eventually. I don't know how good. I don't know if they have last year's team's ceiling. We'll just see. That's why you go every day. I don't get carried away with that stuff. We're going to work as hard as we can. We're going to have the right attitude and effort every day, and I just want them to be the best they can be, irrelevant or doesn't matter about anybody else. But I'd be interested to hear Milos and Emanuel's thoughts on that.
Great, we'll take some questions for the student athletes if you have them, please. Any questions? Anybody want to raise their hand? Bring them back to Randy, please. Randy, right over.
Thanks. Start with Emanuel, Milos to chime in. Just getting that first one. First off, the honor tonight for Coach. I know it means a lot for you guys, but as far as getting on the floor for the first time, getting this journey started, as Coach mentioned, it's one step of many. How'd that feel just to get out there and back in the environment again?
It was great. I've been, itching to get back on the court since, our last game, especially with these new guys. It's a new group. We're starting from, ground zero again, and it's a process. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to be our peak right now. It'd be a problem if we were. So, like he said, not to overreact. These guys are, young. We've got a younger team. It's going to take, a little longer to get all the pieces fitting together the right way. But, but they have the right attitudes. So, we're going to be good. Kingston, Chris, Isaiah, as long as they come every day with, great attitudes, ready to be coached, that we'll be fine. That they've already improved in the past 2 weeks, immensely. So, we have a long way to go, though, so.
Yeah, I think E hit it on the nose. It's November. We got a lot of time to get better. I think we will, so we'll be fine.
Go back to Chris in the middle, please.
For Milos and both Emanuel, to see that ceremony and see the videos, a lot of guys that a few guys you played with for sure. I mean, what did that mean? For you guys to be a part of that?
It means a lot. We're, blessed to, be able to play for a coach like Coach Sampson. He's changed a lot of lives, and you can, that video showed it. He's impacted a lot of guys, all those guys in the video. And, the common theme, we've all been through the same thing, so we know, what it's like to play for him and, what an honor it is. And, it's great to be a part of, such great coaching, a great career. So it means a lot to us.
Definitely. It was super exciting to see some of my teammates on there, LJ, Juan, Leak. And like he said, man, I'm super blessed to play for Coach. I feel like he's helped me become a better player, a better person. So I'm super thankful for that, for him.
Go on the back middle, Cameron, please. Cameron, go ahead.
Milos, what would you say your message would be to the freshmen after tonight and going into the coming days before the next game?
Just to keep working. Don't get too high, don't get too low. It's a long season. Yeah, just to stay focused and where you are. Continue to be where your feet are. Don't think ahead, and just continue to put the work in.
We'll go to Joseph.
Kelvin, I remember 3 years ago when you hit 700 and some of the names of the coaches that had achieved that. We asked you about, being in that group and talked about how humbling it was, and maybe you didn't feel like you belonged in that group. When you look at 800 and the group is starting to shrink even more of people that have accomplished that, what does that mean when you see the names that are on that list and now you're one of them?
But most of the successful coaches that I looked up to, not looked up to. I mean, my dad was a high school coach, so I didn't know anybody in college. I knew who the coaches were. I just knew their names. When I was dating Karen, I'd go over to her house because there's only basketball game on Saturdays, and that's what's the name of that sponsor, Karen? Some pilot. So I'd watch Coach Dean Smith or Coach Bobby Knight, Coach John Thompson. I got to be good friends with Big House Gaines. He was really good to me. But they're all gone now. They're all passed away. And, that kind of humbles you. There's always going to be another generation. The generation that, when I was a little boy coming up, I remember the first time, I think it was 1965 or 66, my father took me to see Pete Maravich play. I didn't think it'd get any better than that. And then years later, I found out he was playing on an 84-foot court, so his range wasn't what I thought it was. Emanuel had been shooting from half court in that gym. Of course, he'd had to lower his arc on his shot because the gym wasn't that big and it wasn't that high. And back then, they didn't have push-out bleachers or pull-in. They were just permanent seats. Just seat about 400 or 500. But all those guys influenced me indirectly because I wanted to. My dad influenced me the most because I wanted to be a coach. But the guy that helped me the most to get here was Judd Heathcote, who the year before I got to Michigan State recruited Magic. So, I keep going back to that word, grateful, but I don't know that, I think because of where I started and from a really small town, the Lumbees in Pembroke, North Carolina, we didn't know anybody like that. We just watched them on TV. And so it's hard for me to relate to people saying, well, putting Dean Smith and Kevin Sampson in the same sentence just don't seem right to me. I just, he's an icon. I'm just a old ball coach. But it's been fun. When you get to be 70, the end is near. Most of my contemporaries, they're just about all gone. But I still enjoy it. I'm looking forward to these freshmen's progress. I'm looking forward to sharing the journey with them and helping them become better players and help Milos and Emanuel. This time next year, they won't be here. They'll be playing professional basketball and then following their journey and seeing another group come in and sharing the journey with them. But, coaching is an evolution. It's always evolving and changing, and but it never stops. It's like the merry-go-round. Either jump off or you jump on. I've jumped on and stayed on for a long time.
I have time for one more question. We'll go to Joe.
Coach Milos said how much you've changed his life. You've changed a lot of players' life. This is a family that they come into here. Just can you talk about the countless people that you've touched? And I know that, it's got to mean something to you, right?
You know what? I'm going to let Joe answer that. Because I recruited Joe when he was 17 or 18 from Butte Central. Let Joe sit right there, man. Come up here, Joe. You didn't know. We never had press conference after our games in Butte. We just tried to hurry up and shower before McDonald's closed. One night we were in Mesa, Colorado, and we pulled into the parking lot. I just called these people. We're coming. We're on our way. And we pulled in the parking lot, and they cut the lights out. We hadn't eaten since like 1 in the afternoon, and it was like 11 at night. What are you going to do? Gas station, potato chips, and Mountain Dew, brother. Right, Joe?
That's right.
That's right. That's where it all started.
Well, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, Coach Sampson, he completely changed the trajectory of my life. The poor kid growing up in Butte, didn't have a prayer, go to college. Coach taught me how to win in life, and that's something that I think he's done, and he's transformed so many lives over the years doing. Eternally grateful for you, Coach. You used the word gratitude a lot. This last year, I went through kind of a challenge, and one of the things that I did is I remembered all the people who were great to me in life, and Kelvin was one of them. And it all symbolized itself through shoes. And back in the day, we played on Converse weapons. They were as heavy as ski boots. That's why nobody could jump back in the day. But those were the shoes that Coach gave me, and that's where we learned how to win. And he's helped me win in life over and over and over, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And he's done that for really thousands of people. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Joe.
Coach, Miles, Ben, Joe, thank you for your time.